Hi guys, Jess here from the Scrappy Sisters. So today I'm doing a 12 by 12 layout using my August Kitaholic kit. And as you can see at the start there, I included a sketch, and that is the sketch that I used to base this 12 by 12 layout on. Now that sketch was provided to us by the founder of Kitaholic Kits, and it is the August challenge, and I wanted to participate in the challenge, so this is my take on the August sketch challenge for Kitaholic Kits. Now this kit has probably been my favourite kit that I have received so far from Kitaholic Kits. It was full of the beautiful Cocoa Vanilla collection, Love Always, and I just thought it was divine. I loved the pastel colours, I loved the flowers, it was just beautiful. The only issue I had was that I'm actually working on my son's album, and I didn't want a hugely girly layout in amongst my son's boy, it's not a word, but layouts. So when I was selecting the photo I used for this layout, I chose a really gorgeous picture of my son and his great-grandma, and I thought these pages would just look beautiful with that, because it is quite a nice, calming, lovely moment, and the nice soft tones was just perfect to go with it. So as you can see, I just laid all the squares higgledy-piggledy. Now the dimensions of those are 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters, and the rectangles are 6 by 12. And I just sort of laid them out however I felt like. Obviously I had the sketch as a basic idea, and then I put out squares and rectangles sort of to make a bit of a quilt happening. I left a band of white down the side from the 12 by 12 white cardstock I used as the base. And I did that on purpose because that's where I'm going to put the title and hang the photo off the side there. So I was really happy with how that was looking, a nice mix of colours and of black and white. So then I took each individual piece and I ran around the edge using my sewing machine. Now I then pulled the threads through to the back, tied them off into knots, and then secured the threads with a little bit of sticky tape. I didn't want the thread sticking out the side, I wanted a nice clean sewing line, and I didn't want any rips or tears or anything to occur. Don't know how it could, but just in case. Then I stuck all those down using double-sided tape, and away I went. So just finishing that off. So I sewed each square before connecting it to the 12 by 12 layout, 12 by 12 cardstock in the layout, because fitting that whole piece of 12 by 12 paper underneath my sewing machine would have been a real challenge. So yeah, that's just a little tip for anyone that is new to using their sewing machine. Just be aware that you've got to stick the whole bit of paper in underneath, so think about where you're sewing. So as you can see, these are some of the goodies that we were given in our kit. There was the Cocoa Vanilla Love Always ephemera pack, which I'm just having a bit of a faff about with at the moment, and you'll see that I'm using it to help put some embellishments around my photograph. Oh, and I backed the photograph with white cardstock, by the way. You can see off to the right hand side there that there is the Cocoa Vanilla Love Always chipboard. There is some Kaiser Craft sticky letters. Underneath those sticky letters there are some silver sequins and some diamantes, and all of that was included in our pack for August, in our kit for August. So the only things on this layout I have used that were not from the kit was the 12 by 12 cardstock that I used as the main backing page, and later on I do use some silver thickers as part of my title. So I'm just having a bit of a play with the ephemera at the moment, and I do this for quite a little while, just sort of having a go with the different clusters and how I want to put some of that around the edge of the photograph. I really, really loved this photo, and I was desperate to do it in a 12 by 12 layout. It's just an absolutely gorgeous picture of my Gran looking so super happy with my little son on her lap. But unfortunately, I'm in the background pulling a horrid face. My eyes are closed, I've got a silly grin, it just really ruined the photograph. So I am trying to use the ephemera to cover me up without it looking ridiculously like I've tried to stick something over my face. And I was really happy with how those flowers sort of tied in with the rest there, and it didn't look like I was just trying to cover me up, I don't think. I think it matched in and it went in quite well. So I stick the two main flowers down on the bottom, and then I stick the top flower on with some foam dots just to give it a little bit of extra dimension. And I put that little leaf in as well. And that's all I do. So I then leave that overnight, and the magic little sticking fairies come and they stick it all down for me. And now I am back the next day, so the light is much better. Well, it's only a little bit better actually. And I'm having another play with a little bit of a cluster that I want to put of the ephemera and the chipboard. But I use the cluster exactly as I've laid it out, but I actually move it a little bit to the right because I am going to do a little bit more sewing. So I stick all those down. And again, as I mentioned before, please be aware when you're using your sewing machine that you have to put this whole piece of paper underneath your sewing machine. So think about where you're putting things. Also, just a little tip that I do, you don't need to, is I make sure that I keep my needles separate. So I've got a needle that I just put a little bit of washi tape on so I know that it's my paper needle, and I have another needle that I use for my material needle, because putting it through paper will blunt the needle more quickly than putting it through material, and there's nothing worse than trying to sew with a blunt needle and it like punches holes through your material and it can pull it, and you don't want to ruin whatever it is you're sewing by using a blunt needle. So I did a heart with white thread and you pretty much can't see it. So I also got a little bit of peach thread and went around as well. I just went around and 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 around that heart, and the heart was just a freehand heart. I didn't draw it. I didn't want it to be perfect. I wanted it to be a little bit messy, and so away I went. And then I pulled the threads through, tied them in knots, and secured them on the back with sticky tape. And now I am sticking down the diamantes and gluing on some sequins. I've never used sequins on a layout before. This was the first time I've had any, so I was really excited to give those a go. And I'm really excited to use those to make a bit of a word shaker on a layout later on. I've got brilliant ideas, I just need to get to them. As you can see from this video, it's taken me 3 or 4 days just to do this one layout. My little man keeps me quite busy, so I've got to come back every chance that I get. And I was on quite a deadline. I started this layout 2 days before the challenge closed, so I had to make sure I got it done in time. So now I am doing my heading, and this is where I get the silver thickers from my stash. And I just write the words Great Gran, because that's who my son is sitting with in the photo. He's sitting with his Great Gran. And I stick those down. And I do those right along the edge, so they're sort of half on the white page and half on the coloured squares. And then I also use the word stickers or the letter stickers that were provided in our kit, and I write my Great Gran and me. And when I get to the and me section, I start from the end of the word because I knew how far into the photograph and onto the ephemera that I wanted the word to go, and I didn't want to misjudge and have that hang out too far. And you might have noticed before I also stuck the letters Great Gran onto a piece of plastic before I stuck them down. I wasn't sure if it would fit, and we actually call her Grandma, not Gran, and if there was plenty of room, which I knew there wouldn't be, I might have written Great Grandma, but so I just wanted to lay it out and make sure it was going to fit, because I really wanted Great Gran on there, and if it wasn't going to fit all in one row, I would have put it into 2 lines because I had to have it. But yeah, so there we go, and me is all done. So now I've done a couple of other little clusters. I didn't realise the camera wasn't on, but I haven't glued those down yet, so I'll just glue those down now, or double-sided tape those down now. So 2 little love hearts next to the my, just to add a little bit of attention, draw your eye down there. And then another little cluster up near the diamantes. I'd put the diamantes there earlier, but I hadn't put an ephemera cluster, and then I decided it needed one. I kind of have that rule of thirds concept I haven't really done in this time. I've kind of put little clusters in each corner. So the photo's in the top left, then the love hearts and the my great grand in the bottom left, as you can see in the photo, and then the heart in the bottom right, and then that cluster in the top right. So I hope you enjoyed, and please subscribe and like, and stay tuned for our next video. Thanks guys!